afternoon to all. My name is Shernon Osepa, and I'm the Manager Regional Affairs for Internet Society for Latin America and the Caribbean. And basically, I would like to give you an explanation with respect to what is Internet Society. Basically, I would like to focus on 3 areas. The first one is, of course, what is Internet Society, what we are doing. The second one, I'll be focused on what we call global and Latin America and Caribbean activities going on. And also I'll be focusing a bit on what we call open standards development through what we call the Internet Engineering Task Force. So let's talk a bit on Internet Society. Internet Society is a global organization focusing on 3 main areas. The first area is what we call Internet development of Internet-related standards. And you may have heard of IPv4, IPv6, autonomous system numbers. All these are standards that were developed by Internet Engineering Task Force, of which our organization is the organizational home. So that's one of the first things that we are doing, focusing on development of Internet standards. The second one is policy development. And as I did say this morning, it's not only policy with respect to technical matters, but also other aspects that normally we don't focus much on. For example, human rights. And there is a direct link between, let's say, human rights and the usage of the internet. So I'll be explaining that later on in the net neutrality session. And the third area is what we call capacity building and education. With capacity building, we would like to get our own people taking the lead. And with education, we are trying in conjunction with other organizations to give a contribution to the development of the internet. And we do also have what we call chapters, as I did mention this morning with example. So with chapters, you may have a local group that is very, let's say, passionate about the internet, and then they can come together and then they can have a so-called local chapter. And since 2 months, we also have a local chapter here in Guyana, led by Mr. Heinz. So basically, that is in a nutshell what Internet Society is doing. Our vision and mission, basically the vision is the internet is for everyone. So that is why you will always hear Internet Society talking when there is like, when, for example, governments or other entities are blocking, let's say, the internet. Because this goes directly against our vision. We would like to see an open internet whereby the whole world let's say, has access to the internet. Our mission is to assure the open development, evolution, and use of the internet for the benefit of all people throughout the world. So basically, it's not about just using the internet to Google, for example. It's important, but we would like to use to see usage of the internet, let's say, go beyond, let's say, just these basic things. And in addition to that, we would like to see our own people also to focus on how can we use the internet to generate, let's say, some income as well. We do have right now, and we are focusing in a particular country in the Caribbean, whereby we would like to see more people not only to use the internet, but to generate new businesses. And these are all aspects that we are focusing on. I already did mention the 3 key areas that we are focusing on. And we do this through, for example, the chapters that I did mention before. Organizations, these are people who build and run the internet. And then we have the IATF, the technical group. that is focusing on how can we continue to improve the internet and to focus on internet standard development. So we have had some key achievements as well. The Internet Society has been there for 25 years. We just celebrated our 25th anniversary last September. So 25 years within the, what you call the internet ecosystem, that's quite old. If you look at Google, Google is 19 years old, if I'm not mistaken right now. And before that, like 20 years ago, we didn't have Google. So, but we have been there. So 25 years, that's a lot within this business. As I already did mention it, we are the organizational home of the Internet Engineering Task Force, where all the technical standards are being developed. IPv4, IPv6, autonomous system numbers. Basically, Internet Society, through the Internet Engineering Task Force, has, let me call it, copyrights over all these standards. But of course, they are widely available for the global community to use. And Internet Society is also what we call a trusted reputation as a neutral and unbiased advocate for the internet. So whenever you hear our opinion, it's not because we gain something out of that. It's not because we have a given equipment or whatever to sell to you. It's because we believe this is the best approach that we can use to address that particular challenge that we are facing then. So, unbiased. We are not defending anyone. The only entity, if you may call it, that we are defending is the internet and people using the internet. We have also brought engagement across industry, civil society, and universities, all of them. So in this regard, we do work in close harmony with governments all around the globe. With universities, we are trying also to get more relationships with them, and also not to forget civil society. And we do have what we call the expert groups. Whenever you have a global, let's say, global or regional event going on, you may have Internet Society's experts attending these events, defending, let's say, the internet that we're using nowadays. For example, right now, there is a global event going on in Argentina where you have Internet Society staff defending, let's say, the internet. And we do have also access to international experts. If we don't have a given expertise in-house, then we always have contacts with all these people who are knowledgeable with respect to that particular topic. I didn't mention it, but Internet Society was one of our founding fathers is Vince Cerf, for example. He is considered the father of the internet. So he did develop this whole TCP protocol on which the internet is based. So these are the kinds of people that we are talking about that are related with Internet Society. So let's focus a bit on global and Latin America and Caribbean activities that we have achieved or that we are focusing on. For example, the first one should be access and community networks. It's a pity that I just did something wrong there, but okay, it is what it is. And the minister spoke this morning with respect to access. And we believe access is one of the most important things that we should be focusing on. Why? Because if you don't have access, you don't have anything. Right now, there are, let's say, 7 billion people walking around this world. So that's the global population. And a bit more than 3 billion people are connected to the internet. So still, less than 4 billion people are not connected. So we need to find ways how we can connect all these people to the internet. And I think, personally, I think Guyana is a very important country in this regard, because in addition to access, we have been focusing on what we call community networks. And this is one of the, is a way how you can, let's say, promote access as well. With community networks, sometimes, especially for operators, it's not lucrative for them to deploy their networks in a given area. And what we're trying to do is then to, with the local communities, try to, let's say, identify a local champion, someone who would like to take the lead on that, and together with the local community and also with international organizations such as Internet Society, but also with others, we can help that particular community to have their own, what we call community network, to have their own internet connectivity. This doesn't mean that we are going to compete with existent operators. In no way are we going to do this. We are going to work all together, because these operators, they are not focusing on those areas. So together with the community, we come together. How can we give internet access to that particular community? So this is one of the areas that Internet Society is focusing on right now. And with the local chapter here in Guyana, we will be focusing how can we do or execute some of these communities, community networks in Guyana. In addition to access, we focus a lot on trust. With trust, we would like to see, it's not only what we would like to see. People are using the internet, let's say, to conduct, let's say, business, e-commerce, for example. Did you know, for example, that just in 30 seconds, 1.4 million of dollars, US dollars, are being, let's say, generated over the internet by using e-commerce. So the internet is serious business. So that is why if people don't trust the internet, then they would also not doing any e-commerce or other financial activities over the internet. But in order for people to trust the internet, then we need to ensure that we focus on the cybersecurity. How can we make networks much more secure? And this is also one of the things that we are doing. We also focus on internet governance. Tomorrow we will be having a whole day focusing on internet governance. So I'm not going to focus much on that. I would like to invite you to be here tomorrow, and we will be doing that. We also focus on what we call interconnection and traffic exchange improvement through what we call the internet exchange points. And I'm looking here in this audience, my good friend Bavel Wooding. He has been promoting IXPs in the Caribbean for such a long time. So this is also one of the things that Internet Society is doing with other organizations. And we support what we call the NOCs, Network Operating Groups. By Wednesday, we will be having a Carib NOC here in Guyana. So these are also activities that we are supporting. W4C initiatives, it's more wireless communities engagements that we are focusing on. As I did mention with the first example, globally we are supporting these kind of activities as well. And we work with academia and universities. Why academia? Why universities? Because here we have the bright minds. People who are, let's say, next generation, and of course they are the future, so we like to work with them in order for us to ensure that we continue to have, let's say, the internet, and maybe even a better internet than what we have nowadays. And they can do this through the Internet Engineering Task Force. We promote, as I did mention, the IATF, Internet Engineering Task Force activities, of which our organization is the organizational home. And we support also and encourage deployment of advanced Internet technologies, such as IPv4, IPv6, for example. Mr. Swift, Kevin Swift, they will be having a LACNIC on the move on Thursday, whereby they will be focusing a lot on IPv6. In addition to IPv6, we have also what we call DNSSEC. Albert Daniels from ICANN will be explaining that more. And RPKI, Research Public Key Infrastructure, that also LACNIC will be focusing on coming Thursday. And then we are also raising awareness with respect to all kinds of other topics. Internet of Things, for example, cybersecurity, and so on, and so on. So these are key areas that we have been focusing on. If you look at what we call open standards developments, there are different organizations out there focusing on standard development. For example, I did explain, for example, this morning with this microphone, it does comply with a given standard in order for us to call it a microphone. And this is the same thing with the internet. The internet also has a given standard, if we would like to call it the internet. So we see there are several organizations that in one way or the other are focusing on standard development. Those of you who are using, for example, GSM technology, that's a so-called ETSI standard. I'm sure most of us are connected to the internet through Wi-Fi. That's an IEEE standard. So you see, you have all these organizations that are focusing on standards development. But you have only one organization or entity that is focusing on internet-related standard development. And that's the Internet Engineering Task Force that I've been talking about, of which our organization is the organizational home. Okay? So we do have some challenges in the Caribbean and Latin America when it comes to the IATF, and that is why we are working with universities trying to address these challenges. If you look, for example, in Latin America and the Caribbean region, and I'm not only talking about Latin America, I'm not only talking about the Caribbean, but I'm talking about Latin America as well. The region is underrepresented. So if you attend any IATF, Internet Engineering Task Force meeting, you would notice that we don't have much people from LAC region attending. And that is why we have been focusing through the IATF, especially working with universities, try to identify, let's say, bright minds, people who would like to add value to the ongoing work of the IATF. There are some opportunities there as well, because within the IATF, I'm not going to focus much on it right now, but you have several working groups within the IATF. And they are looking right now, for example, for people who would like to focus on open source. So if you have any interest in, let's say, open source development, then you can become part of that working group and try to add value to ongoing work within the IATF. Last year, April 2006, we had the first IATF, Internet Engineering Task Force, meeting in LAC region, and that was in Argentina, Buenos Aires, Argentina. And there were a few people from the Caribbean and Latin America there, but still we are not there. Still we need to have much more people attending, and not only attending, but to participate, to be engaged in working groups trying to give an added value. We are trying this week also to visit, let's say, the university, whereby I'll be persuading them for us to get these bright minds to contribute to the IATF ongoing work. So basically, these are the things that Internet Society is doing, And as I did mention, tomorrow we will be having an Internet Governance Forum whereby we will be focusing on Internet governance challenges that not only we are seeing in the region, but that we are seeing globally as well. So with that, I would like to thank you very much.
Thank you for that presentation, Ms. Osepa.